Hi everyone! My name is Kamryn Sands. I'm an actress and a filmmaker. Today, I want to sit you down and hold your hand and tell you to stop overthinking your self-tape setup for your auditions. If you've ever spent 3 hours setting up your self-tape setup and readjusting one light because it looks weird, this video is for you. I want to help you fix your overthinking right now. I just want to help actors who are driving themselves crazy trying to build a professional self-tape setup that looks like a Netflix soundstage in their 400 square foot apartment. You don't need any of that. I promise you, you don't need any of it. Here's the truth that nobody in that actor Facebook group wants to admit and say out loud. Casting directors do not care if you're using a fancy, expensive box light or if you're using a ring light. As long as you don't have a reflection in your eye or you're wearing glasses and the light is reflecting off of them and they can't see your eyes, they don't care. They just want to see you clearly. They want to see your face clearly. They want to be able to hear you, and they want to see that your work is authentic and genuine to you. That's it. Everything else is noise and a distraction, and it's unnecessary. I've literally seen actors book guest stars and co-star roles on big shows like The Outer Banks and Stranger Things and Murdoch Murders with an iPhone propped up on a stack of books in a hotel room. You don't need to pay somebody to do a self-tape for you. You don't have to go to a self-tape studio. You don't have to pay someone to film your audition for you. I have gotten auditions that say literally word for word, you do not need to spend any money to self-tape. As long as you follow the above rules of the breakdown, your tape will be perfectly acceptable. So you don't need to go spend money on a self-tape. I have a crappy tripod from Amazon. I think it was 30 bucks when I got it. It might have gone up to 60 now, but it's a ring light. I'm using it to film right now. It's just two. It's 2 ring lights instead of 1, because sometimes if you just have 1 ring light, then the circles in your eyes, I don't know. It doesn't matter if you have circles in your eyes. It's okay. Don't overthink it. But if you don't want circles in your eyes, you can go the extra mile and get 2 rinky-dink cheap ring lights. If you don't have a ring light, record in front of a window. If you're in a hotel or on a cruise or on vacation and you get an audition, just do whatever you can to be comfortable and confident in the work that you're doing. It doesn't matter if there's a light switch behind you. Nobody cares that much. If your work is decent enough and strong, then they're going to be focusing on you and your work and your acting and your performance and your connection to the character, not the light switch behind you or your dog walking around on the floor behind you. Of course, it would be distracting if they see your dog, but if you do a really strong tape and you hear footprints of your dog like walking around on the floor, if it's not distracting enough, they're not gonna care. You're human. They don't care if you have a dog under you walking around. If you hear the AC go on and you had a great tape but you're like, dang it, the AC turned on, submit it anyway. Like, it doesn't matter if the AC turned on or if you hear your dog's paws on the ground. If it's not crazy distracting, if it didn't bring you out of the scene, it's okay. You don't have to stop the scene entirely just because the air vent came on. This backdrop I don't remember how much it was, but I also think it was pretty cheap on Amazon. My husband does video, and so he had a tripod already, or a thingy, like C-stand thing, so I can put the backdrop on. It's blue on one side, gray on the other side. I also don't think anybody cares if you use blue or gray. Just do what you want. Like, it doesn't matter. If you want to film in front of your wall that is just completely plain, great. That's fabulous. That's wonderful. Nobody cares that much. Nobody is looking at your self-tape and saying, oh my God, she used a gray backdrop instead of blue. No casting director is going to be bothered by that. And I just want you guys to know that I use my phone because I have a MacBook, and when I film an audition on my phone, I can easily airdrop the videos to my computer, edit it in iMovie or Final Cut just super quick, and then upload it. You don't need a film camera or a digital camera. You don't really need any of that. If you've got a phone with the camera, that works. If you don't have a way to get your files from your phone onto your computer, there are really easy ways to upload from your phone too. There's iMovie on your phone. If you don't have an iPhone, you can use Dropbox or Google Drive, and you can find ways to streamline the process of getting the files off of your phone onto your computer, but it's not even necessary to edit on your computer. You don't have to. It's easier for me to do it that way, but you can edit immediately directly from your phone and upload it that way. Of course, rename the files beforehand, because usually the casting director will ask you to rename the files in the breakdown, but that's not what we're talking about today, okay? What we're talking about is your self-tape setup. It does not have to be fancy. It does not have to be perfect. You don't even need a mic. If your phone has a microphone on it, that's great. Just have your self-tape reader stand further back so that they're not louder than you. And if you watch the videos back and you're a little quiet, just try to project more. But you do not need a lavalier mic. You don't need a Rode mic that's connected to your phone. You don't need any special fancy equipment, okay? If you have a phone and they can see you and they can hear you, then you're good. You're great. You're doing amazing. If you want to, do special things to upgrade your setup, that's perfect. I know some girls who have really awesome travel setups, and I know some people who use very professional box lights and panel lights, and that's amazing. When I help them tape, their setup is great. They just got to turn on the lights and it's perfect. I live in a teeny tiny duplex house, and I have a teeny tiny little room that's very cluttered, and every single time I do a self-tape, I have to break all of my equipment down. I unfortunately do not have a permanent self-tape setup because I just don't have a room that is dedicated to solely self-tapes. Sometimes I move around, sometimes I film in the living room, sometimes I film in this bedroom, and sometimes I film in the kitchen. It's just whatever works for me that day. If you don't have a tripod, use a table or a desk or your dresser, and use books or a shoebox to prop up your phone. Just do whatever works for you. Of course, if you don't have a completely plain backdrop yet, or a plain wall to film in front of, and there's a light switch on it, like I said, it's okay. If you're filming inside a studio apartment or inside your parents' house or your cousin's house, then just make sure you feel good about the work you're doing and do whatever you can to alleviate any stress or pressure of your setup. Because if your setup is your number one focus and concern, and your primary objective of this audition is making sure your self-tape setup is perfect and good, then I feel like you're doing it wrong, and you're doing yourself a disservice because you're putting so much pressure on your lights and your camera and your backdrop, and you want to be able to have your primary focus to be your audition, the work that you're doing, the character, even if it's only one line. You want to be able to put your focus on that and not the lights behind you. I just don't want you guys to stress or feel so much pressure about your setup when instead you could be focusing on doing just really great, incredible, awesome work, acting-wise, that is real and honest and vulnerable and grounded and professional work. The work is more important than your lights or your color grading or your backdrop. You don't have to color grade your self-tape setup. Like, you don't have to color grade your tapes. If you want to put voice isolation on, if you have an editing program and you want to do voice isolation, awesome. But sometimes when you do voice isolation, it could warp your voice and make you sound funny, and they just want to be able to hear you loud and clear. They want to be able to see you. So stop buying new gear unless you're doing it to make it easier on yourself. But if you have lights that work just fine, you don't need to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on new lights. Make sure your framing is like this, or if you have more action in this scene, you can do, more where they see your stomach to your top of your head, but make sure your framing is good and they can see you clearly and hear you clearly and that's all you need. If you don't have a tripod yet, just stack your phone on books. Make sure you've got good eye lines, eye level. If you have a scene with multiple people, you can make sure, like, I'm putting grandma over here, I'm putting my uncle over here, and I'm putting my cousin in the back over there, and then you have your different eye lines of the different people that you're talking to. But you don't need to overthink that either. Make sure you do have decent lighting. Of course, you don't want to be filming in a darker room, but you also don't need to stress or overthink about the lighting. If you are on vacation and you don't have fancy lights and you don't have a plain backdrop, just do the self-tape to the best of your ability, and they're not really gonna care if you're in a hotel room or not. They're just going to be enthralled and focused on your performance and your portrayal of this character. Film in front of a window if you don't have any lights. Make sure you have a plain backdrop, but again, like, if there's a light switch or a dresser behind you and you can't make sure that you have a solid wall behind you, it's not the end of the world. They are not going to be worried about the dresser that's behind you unless you are. If you're filming a self-tape and you have a dresser behind you and a light switch behind you and you're freaking out about it, then of course they're going to be like, oh my gosh, why? Like, you know, because you're not connected and you're out of focus mentally, and you are worried about the dresser and the light switch behind you as opposed to the work and being present and being in the scene. Of course, you want a quiet room, but again, if you hear someone in the background or if you hear the AC vent come on, if it's taking you out of the scene, then do whatever you can to keep those distractions at bay. But if you're doing the work and the AC vent comes on and you stay in it with your scene partner and you're still connected and you're still in the moment, then when you watch that self-tape back, you're not going to be thinking about the AC vent when it came on halfway through the self-tape, or my printer. Sometimes my printer comes on or turns off halfway through my self-tape, and it can distract me and take me out, but it comes on so often now that I've gotten to the point where sometimes if my printer comes on or if my AC comes on, then I'm still in the moment, I'm still in the scene, and these distractions over here aren't going to stop me mid self-tape anymore. I'm going to keep going and get through it, and I'm not going to stop just because my printer decided to turn on halfway through my self-tape. And if those things aren't distracting you or taking you out of the scene, then the casting director isn't going to care if the printer comes on either. And I'm talking noises. Like, if there are noises in the background, it could be distracting if someone's like hammering on the counter, but if little creaks here and there are happening throughout your house or apartment, if they're not distracting you and taking you out of the scene, then the casting director won't worry about it either. You don't really want posters or messy dressers behind you, but if it's just your one little cleaned off dresser in the background and you see just the corner of it behind you, it's okay. And no, you don't want visible laundry or stuff behind you. You don't want anything that's going to be blatantly distracting or messy or busy, but if there's a tiny little light switch behind you or the corner of your window or closet door or something, it's not going to be as big of a deal as you think it is. The second you start chasing perfect framing and 3-point lighting, having a backlight or a hair light and a filler light and a side light and all of the different types of lights that you can set up, expensive cameras, or even color grading your self-tapes after, you're stealing time from actually working on the scene. Casting is not going to remember an insanely high budget production value self-tape. They're going to remember the work and you, who you are as a person, your personality, and your essence that comes through the camera. If you're taking more than 15 minutes to set up your self-tape, you've got to cut some steps out. All I want you to do is set up your camera, set up whatever clear background you have, a light that makes sure people can see you, send it to a friend and ask them, can you see me and can you hear me clearly? If they say yes, then you're good. You're done. You don't need all of the extra boxes. You don't have to check all the boxes of the 3-point lights and having a fancy backdrop or having an expensive tripod or having any factor that is going to elevate your self-tape setup. If you want to do that, fine. I'm not gonna tell you guys to not get lights and a backdrop if that's something you want to work towards or get, but I don't need you to be stressing or overwhelmed or burdened by the idea of having a professional professional self-tape setup when in reality, at the end of the day, casting just wants to see you and hear you clearly, and that's it. The rest is just icing on the cake, but even then, if it's distracting you from the work, then you're putting too much time and effort and energy into your self-tape setup as opposed to the work and analyzing the script and doing script analysis and understanding the project. If it's a project that's already been out, watch a few episodes of the show before you do your self-tape. If it's a movie, then research the director and the writer and the types of people who are working on the project so that you know the tone and the energy and the pacing, if it's procedural or if it's a drama or if it's a comedy. You want to know those things. Yes, a self-tape setup is great. It's what allows the casting directors to see you and hear you, but what you want to be putting your time and energy into, it's so much more than just the self-tape setup. Your setup is already good enough. Stop tweaking it and stop overthinking it. Start acting instead. But instead of acting, just be. Be the character. Be the person that you're in a scene with, and just be in that moment, in that scene. Focus on the moment before and the moment after, and being truly present in this character's life and understanding of the world around them. And if you're doing a million takes, then I want you to be able to get to the point where you can do no more than 5 takes and feel good about the work that you're doing. You don't need to do 50 million takes. 2 to 4, I think, is a perfect amount. If you're doing any more than that, you're overthinking, and then you're gonna have a million tapes to choose from. And when you're on set, you might have a lot of takes, but you also might have 1 or 2. Some directors only give you 1 or 2 takes, and some directors might get a little frustrated if you need to do tape after tape after tape. And there have been instances where an actor may do a self-tape and it's great, but it took them 100 tries to get that, and then they get on set and they can't do the scene, and then they get fired and replaced because sure, you may have done great work in your room after the 100th take, but once you're on set, you're not going to get 100 takes. So being able to confidently perform and do the scene genuinely and authentically in the moment and fully present a couple of times for your self-tape, that's the goal. Because when you're on set, you're not going to have 100 million takes where you can just delete it and do the takes over and over and over and over again. So my point here, I know I might sound like a broken record, but my point is that at the end of the day, you don't want to be overthinking your lights or your backdrop or your camera or your audio. You want to be seen clearly and heard clearly, and you can achieve that with any phone nowadays. The moment you get an audition, you should be printing it out. If you have a printer, going to your local library and printing it out for a couple of cents and highlighting and physically touching, feeling the paper, having it in front of you. Because even though in the digital age, I know you can just read it off of your phone, but having it on paper in front of you is so valuable. And you might get on set the day of and your lines have changed. So being able to pivot and adapt and be on your feet, able to say different lines at any given moment. But having a printed paper, even if on the day when you're on set, it could change. With your audition, having a physical piece of paper is so helpful to be able to dissect and analyze what's going on in the scene, understanding these stage directions and the characters who are in front of you and around you, your environment, if it's day or night, if you're in high school or if you're single or if you're going through a hard time. Who are you? Why are you going through a hard time? If you're making fun of someone and you're auditioning for a bully role, why are you mean? Why are you a jerk? There are so many different factors and so many different questions that you want to ask and be answering, and having these choices in your head of what you're playing and who you're playing, and that's what you should be focused on, not your lights and backdrop. All right, that's it. Your self-tape setup is perfect, I promise. Now go tape something. If this helped even a tiny bit, please like and subscribe. And you can always change your mind later if you don't want to be subscribed anymore, but it's free, so just subscribe, please. And share with your actor friends who you think this may help. Comment yay below if you are done overthinking your self-tape setup. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped, and I'll have a list of my gear in the description below as well. I hope you have the best day ever, and I hope you get to be on set very soon. Bye!